So we on. All right. So what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Gemini Show. I am the Gem Star,
and I am Ayana.
And yeah, we're here to talk about some different issues that we got going on today. So this is our Black Politics episode. We're gonna dig into a few things about Black politics. So first thing up, we introduced ourselves. We also want y'all to know that we got a coach. We call her MJ. She's our moderator. She keeps us in line. So MJ, what's our first topic for the day?
Trump. Our favorite person.
Trump.
Not our favorite person. The word, like, I really don't even like saying his name. It's disgusting.
Yeah, honestly, I'm getting to the point where he doesn't bother me the way he used to. I'm realizing through this pandemic, that time that you have alone, I'm realizing that the more energy that you put into the negativity, the more you continue to attract it. So it's almost like it becomes a thing constant in your life. So you're constantly in this fear, fight or flight type instance because you hate just his name or his face. So
for me, it's more of his mannerisms and his voice is annoying, and it's not when I watch the news, I don't have that panic and a lot of things that many people express to me that they feel like it makes them anxious. I've been watching the news every day probably since we've been home. But what he does, first of all, he is entertainment. And if this wasn't our reality, it would be hilarious, right? Because, this is like a live Saturday Night Live episode.
Think about it.
This shit is funny.
We used to big up Trump. You know what I'm saying? We used to big up him as a symbol of prestige and success.
I probably watched The Apprentice all the time. And I thought he was entertaining. And he is entertaining, except for this is our lives. And that's why it's not entertainment. He's like a big entertainer. Yeah. So that is what is bothering me about Trump, and he is just disrespectful. He has no care. And let me just say, there are a few things that I would like about Trump. I like his honesty. I like that you know where you stand with him, right? To me, he says it, and I can appreciate that all the time because there's no worries or concern. You know who he doesn't like. You know what he's saying. I can appreciate all of that. And there are a few probably one policy that I can probably get with Trump, and we won't get into that yet. But there's a few little things that I'm like, I don't like to voice it too loud because I don't want anyone to think I'm a Trump supporter. But, he does have a few little policies that I can kind of be okay with.
I'm in agreement, man. Somebody who's coming straight up, you know exactly where they're coming from, you know exactly how they feel. Even if you don't like it, at least you know.
Exactly.
But, the only problem I have with it is you may not like it, but you feel powerless. It's like, what can you do? So I know for me, as far as voting, I don't really feel like there's a choice. There's a true choice. It seems like you have all of these people that started out running for president, and somehow, some way, they just trickle off. And some of them had some really good ideas. Some things that I did like. And
you had a favorite?
What was the one guy? The Asian guy who...
you like the Asian guy? I don't remember.
Yeah. I can't think of his name. We'll get back to him. But yeah, it was just... I just wanted to hear more. And it seems like the way the system is designed, it's only for those who can produce the money to run a campaign or the money to go through the state or however they do it. It's all about money. If you don't have money, you're not even going to be a viable candidate. Forget about your platform.
Andrew Yang. Yang.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So the yin and the yang, I was down with some of that stuff he was saying. Just coming from it from a more practical point of view. So I look at America as a business. America is a business, capitalistic. It's a business. The problem is people try to run it like a social administration, and it's not. I don't think people understand the constructs of the government.
Or any industry. I think that what you're saying makes complete sense. So as far as voting and maybe our vote not counting, I think our political system as a whole is some shit. The electoral college, the way we vote, all of that stuff, or the way we pay taxes, all of those things, I totally agree with what you're saying. But I do feel like, and it's not, I don't want to be like, as a lot of black people say, like, our ancestors fought for those rights. Because it's not just about that, although that's true, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like it's a way that we have to pay that respect to our ancestors or the people before us to vote. But not only that, even though I do agree that I don't know what changes it actually makes, but I do feel like it is our duty to at least go out and play the game, since that's the game we're playing, right? Like in the meantime, we still got to figure out another way to play the game or other rules to the game. But I do think that you do have to at least participate in the game until we get to something different.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that, you know. I think I'd rather put my energy into how can we have something different. You know, I mean, the game is played, and yes, I'm a part of it, like you're a part of it, we're a part of it.
But are you? Because do you believe in voting?
So,
do you think voting...
Well, I look at it like this. This is one of my I'm glad, good question. This is one of the things that anyone out there, help me understand this. You got a voting system that's unlike every other system, especially with the federal government, with the state government. There are checks, there are balances, there are things that hold people accountable. There are third parties, you know, things that check it. Our voting system is probably one of the most important systems, but again, who runs it? What department runs it? Who votes for the people? Think about the Electoral College. How are these people selected? How come that's not a televised event the same way as the presidency, when these people can choose the president? Let's say the non-repudiation. How can I say that my vote definitely came from me and it went to a place that has no interest in who wins or who loses? So, you know, the bottom line is, how can we even determine that our vote truly is a vote that went into this system that doesn't, you know, that's not controlled by the people who are running the country?
Listen, everything you're saying is valid and true, but the bottom line is we're here, we're in this country, and this is the game of politics. All of our systems are messed up. I mean, every single system. So what
do? We keep going on?
No. We don't keep going on. But in the meantime, you vote, and then after you do that little vote that takes you a few minutes out your day, you just go ahead and do that. Then we do whatever else is necessary. But in the meantime, this is where we are, and we have to play the game. Because honestly, we need to destroy all the systems, and we can start with the political system. I mean, that's the biggest. I agree. I think the electoral colleges, it's just all bullshit. The way the senators, like how they get these lifetime, like just everything. Judges, like every office that is too long of a term, we shouldn't even be having that stuff. These old white people who are controlling, who are so removed, so far away from the everyday people, those should not be the people in office, right? But we have to make change so that those aren't the people in office. But in the meantime, you still have to participate in the game. Like, I mean, I don't necessarily like corporate America, but I get my check every week, you know what I'm saying? Because it pays the bills. And so I play the game of corporate America. I play the game to be in this country. It's just like part of it until you can make a change. But just I'm not going to participate in that. But and you live in Maryland, so maybe it's not that big of a deal. But think about states where those votes really count. Think about someone who is also saying, I'm not going to vote. That really can make a difference. In our area, it may not. In Maryland, you know what I'm saying?
And why do you say that?
I mean, just because of the electoral colleges and the blue states and the red states and all this other stuff. So maybe it doesn't make a difference.
There's states that are connected to electoral college, which makes the vote a little different, means more important.
Exactly. Okay. But if you're in a place, Michigan, or you know what I'm saying? That's a lot of black people there. But imagine if everyone, or just a percentage, because when they start, and I don't know the statistics offhand, but when they start talking about the popular vote versus the electoral college and the number of people who you missed out on this number of votes, and it's not large numbers of the people who didn't vote, or that made a difference, and that's when you have to vote, because it does, not all the time, but it definitely makes a difference.
What do you guys think about Trump's antics about everything that's going on right now. So we have a lot of social injustice things going on. We have, of course, his dialogue and his rants and raves about Kamala Harris. Did I say your name right?
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that? I mean, he calls Biden sleepy. What does he call her? I can't recall at the time. I'll look it up shortly. But what do you guys think about his whole thing about blaming everything on the Democrats, blaming Corona on China?
He blames everything on everyone. He never takes accountability for anything. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter. He's going to continue to blame. I think all of his antics are distractions. They definitely keep us talking about other things that maybe we shouldn't be talking about. I think the media portrays part of that in what we see on the news, right? Like, there are things that happen that are always a distraction. Every time we're watching the news, I'm telling you, there's so much more behind the scenes that we aren't aware of because we don't know. And because we rely on reporters to report, we rely on the government to tell us, we rely on, you know what I mean? We rely on the doctors to be truthful. We rely on all of these systems by the government that are in place, whether we talk about food, drug, justice system, we rely on them to give. Yeah, so it's all like
totally dependent. Like what next? What do you want us to do next? What can we do now? You know, everything is a dependency on a government that has always disregarded us.
It does, and I mean, and we can continue to talk, and we will, I'm sure, one day talk about either getting up out of here, we need to go back to Africa, or what we talked about, what you said earlier, I thought was really good. Tell me about that again.
So it's called the Freedom Georgia Initiative. We're going to get back to that in a little bit. But first I want to stay on Trump. You know, I just think that this man is totally out of his mind. It's obvious. And like you said, that's a good point. He's a distraction. He's purposely there to galvanize our emotions and, you know, keep us talking about him and the negative energy, you know. And if you, like she said, you want to participate in it and go vote, and it makes a change or doesn't make a change, because I really don't think there's going to be a lot of difference. I was just listening to a Ronald Reagan quote from back in 84, whenever he was elected. But he was like, you know, you guys are going to go out and vote next week, and, you know, I just want you to think about one thing. Are you any better off now than you were 4 years ago? And when I look at all the 4 years that have passed throughout my life, I don't see a lot of difference. The presidents have changed, the Democrats, the Republicans have changed, all that stuff has changed. But when you look at the diaspora of black people and where we are with ownership, with the criminal justice system, with poverty, with education, like across the spectrum, all of our needs, and they are never addressed. I don't care what president, how many people you got voting, no matter how, our condition stays the same. There has to come a time when we wake up and say, hold up. And I think that's this time now, this age of Aquarius, where people are waking up, people are becoming aware, the veils are being removed, and we are really getting down to what's important. Especially for us, because we're never including what's important for America.
Right.
We're thrown in. They don't even.
Yeah, we're not really thrown in this.
The funny thing is, we are at the below the bottom, and they always lump us in with people who are doing much better than us. Asian, Hispanics, and it's just funny. We don't even have our own category of attention. So, you know, just to me, I think of the history of what we've been through, where we are, and just the idea of continuing to try to fight the system, within the system, around the system, in between the system.
So and again, everything you're saying makes complete sense. So there's something you said that I want to touch on about nothing changing. Basically, we've been on this earth 45 years, and I'm sure before I had the right to vote, nothing was really changing. Black people are still enslaved. I mean, you know what I mean? That was from generations and generations ago. We still are, we're minorities. We're minorities in business. We're minorities in just everything that matters. Education, like all of the things, right? So we know that. But before we can get to the change, because really we need to talk about what are we going to do, because voting really isn't the way of our solution. That's not a solution for Black people, right? Like, that's not going to be the way. And again, that's just, I say, playing the system. But before then, we have to think about, if we're going to talk about the changes in Black people or what's not happening, you have to think, like when you said about politics, right? And people, anybody who comes into any industry, whether we're talking about politics or whether we're talking about nurses, whether we're talking about teachers, people come into these fields with bright ideas. There's young college kids right now, or even younger, who are thinking, oh, I want to be president, I want to be this, I want to be that. But the problem with the system is they come in, they go through, and I believe people have the best intentions when they want to become lawyers or teachers or president, you know what I mean? They have a good intent. But the problem with it is our system beats them down and doesn't allow. So you come out with these great ideas as a politician. You're like, I'm going to make this change. I'm going to do this. But then when you find out the red tape and the game of that goes into that, because they're like, oh, hell no. First of all, the decision is made on the golf course, not anywhere else. And then it's all about,
it's who you know,
it's who you know, and it's
who
all
back you rub.
And no, that's what I was going to say. You do this for me, and maybe I think about passing your bill. But right now, nothing's getting passed in your county, your local, your government, like whatever it is, whatever local level, big level, there's all these deals. And again, that talks about our system. You know what I mean? So
not
it's like
transparent at all.
Exactly.
And that's probably the most dangerous thing about the way that we do politics, is that it's normal to have this facade and this fantasy. When they talk about things, they talk about issues, they talk about them in this general sense. Like, I would love to find a fact checker that everything somebody ran for, like I think presidents, everybody in a public position should have a grade. You know, we get performance evaluations.
Oh, yeah.
I think people should have a grade. You should hold people accountable for what they said and what they actually did. But since it's just such a game, that's why it's like, you know, but again, that's the truth and facts are never addressed. It's all this rhetoric. Democrat, Republican. That's another
distraction. All of it is just right. All of that is bulls. But so the real thing is, how are we really going to make change? Because it's not in this system. It's not in this system. Because, like you say, each 4 years has been staying the same. Whoever changes, Black people are still where we are.
Faces change, but we still stay
in the same. And it's still the same, because the majority of the world, right? The majority controls the money, they control the media, they control the books, they control everything that's put out to us. Yep. And then we are minorities, and then because of history and so much, we just don't have the ability to pull ourselves together in the way that many other cultures do, because we don't have the culture and the history of a lot of other people.
Well,
so what do you guys think about, you talked about voting, and this is what we're going to do, and for the meantime, we're going to play the game of voting, right? So what do you think are baby steps that we can do while we're playing the game? And what I kind of mean by that is, there's some education that, you know, we as Black people need to do. We have to find out these things that we have questions about. And we may have to, I mean, to me, even though the social system is all crazy and all of that, there's still kids growing up wanting to be these things. And so what are some ways that we can nourish those ideas? What are some ways that we can try to come together in smaller groups so that we can support one another? You guys have any ideas about that?
I love that concept. I've been thinking for a long time of starting like a men's group. And, you know, not necessarily to isolate male from female, but just the fact that, you know, there are some issues that men deal with that women don't deal with. Some issues that women deal with and men don't deal with. And you see all of these women groups. I see them all over all the time. They're going away on retreats, doing yoga, all this stuff. But men, it seems like the only time we can get together is over drinks and sports and things that don't really address our issues, address how we feel, things we're going through, and what plans do we have as the leaders of our community to start making a difference and making change. So, I think that's one of the things that we can definitely start out with is having groups that we get together. We don't have to be on the same accord. We don't have to have the same exact goals. We don't have to think the same. But there are things that affect us that we all have in common. Things like police brutality, things like taking care of our children, things like investing and coming together, on business deals, things like how to take care of our family, things about our health, our mental health, our physical health, so things where we might have different resources that are all over here doing their own individual thing, but when we get together, we'll find a lot more commonalities and a lot more resources to get towards the goals that we can accomplish without the government's help. So I think that's a great question.
No, I do think it's a great question, and I think that you definitely said some great things. I think that a male group is great, and I also think that a woman's group, like just doing different things, I think that overall, when I think of that question, the first thing that comes to my mind is communication and education. Because we have got to obviously do a much better job of communicating within our own selves. But again, it's just so much history within Black people, the Black community. You know what I mean? That impacts the way that we interact, right? But I also really like your idea of when we all come together, we all have resources, and we really have to start learning to really trust, because Black people, we don't trust each other, right? And we have to get ourselves together so that we can pool our resources, because I think you said it perfectly. We all don't have the same agenda. We all don't care about the same things. I know when I was younger, if I was going to join a community group, it probably would have been something for single mothers who need to learn about education so I can get a better job. You know what I mean? That may have been something. Right now, my kids are older. That may not be my goal. So I do think, but we all need to figure out what our resources are and how can we unite together or pull together so that we can start making a change. And it's definitely not going to be with the government. Like, whatever we do, we need to stop trying to rely on anyone else but ourselves.
Yep, I agree. So that takes us to a perfect segue. As we were talking earlier, it's called the Freedom Georgia Initiative. So, two Black females got together. One's a real estate agent, and they saw an advertisement for something like 97 acres. Actually, it was bigger than that. The 97 acres that they purchased was a piece of the land that was for sale. But basically, what they have done is they purchased land with the intention to build their own city on top of it. So this is a safe space for Black folk. This is a place where we can feel safe through the pandemic, through the policing of neighborhoods and things of that nature. So the idea is for self-sufficiency. So the idea is to teach you how to hunt, teach you how to fish, teach you how to use solar power, teach you how to grow your own food, and different tactics of survival. And I think it's a great idea. It's down in Georgia, and I really think it's a progressive, forward-thinking idea to start shifting our energy to things that make sense for us. I get what we've always done and what we're used to doing. We have to realize that the mind can be habitual. We can do the same thing over and over again, and it seems normal. But there comes a time in your spirit where you're like, there's time for a change. Everybody gets to that point where it's like, I'm done. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I think that's where we are. So I think that the idea, everything is coming in the perfect time. And I think that I'm going to even predict this, that you're going to see a lot more Black people working together. I think if we remember our history, that the time we were most united was when we were under the most duress, back in the 50s, 40s, 60s, and now, same thing. They're killing us by the week, like 2-3 in a week, killing us in every kind of way, just blatant
hangings. Black people been hanging.
Blatant terrorism. You know, it's interesting because I was also listening to a program the other day where, who were they talking to? They were talking to somebody about just the social injustice climate, and even the reporter's wording. You know, almost everything was, well, there's so many people, black on black crime in this city, like diverting from the actual issues. And then when they started talking about the atrocities in China, that they have some concentration camps for Uyghurs. It almost sound like niggas. We're going to have to edit that. But it sounded like they said niggas. And it's something, it said, so that it's a population of, are they Hispanics? There's some population that the Chinese have in concentration camps. And oh my gosh, the language.
Right.
This genocide, and I can't believe Disney, that's what they were talking about, Mulan. So they're talking about Mulan that's on now.
Right.
And how Disney thanked this force, this police force that's part of creating these concentration camps.
Right.
And they're calling it inhumane and genocide. And even the wording that's used for that type of instance, but yet when we talk about Black Lives Mattering, or we talk about, you know, the blatant killing, the first thing they're talking about is, well, what did the guy do?
Right.
What's his criminal history? You know what I'm saying?
Even if they're not saying that or asking that, they're going to dig up something and put something out there to now give the image to everyone else, so that people are now thinking, well, what did he do?
And so that this is a good thing. Like when we talk about change, a lot of times we look at the immediate, acute cut on the arm. So oh my God, George Floyd, justice for George Floyd, you know, justice for Breonna Taylor. But what we don't look at is the change is really a mind state. So people like the reporter who think they're just doing their job. They're so caught up in the narrative that black people are criminals by nature. So if the police did this, they had to be out of line because that's what those people do. We're not saying all of you, but just you in the poorer name. So there's a mentality that needs to change along with, along with politics and laws and things of that nature. And one last point is I see now this flux of these commercials about, you know, COVID and why aren't we doing sensitivity commercials about black people mattering and black people are just like you and we're all, this is a human problem. Like, why aren't we having these commercials? All this COVID money is going to these people making these commercials. Right. For COVID to become a normal thing. Why are there not commercials about, again, the higher ups, they don't care about our issues, man. They don't
care.
I
mean, you touched on a lot when you talk about the media, obviously. I mean, that's what they continue to do. I mean, we talked, you and I had a conversation in the past about when white people, I think that guy who, you know, was at the protest, you know what I'm saying, and shot those black.
Kyle, what's his name? Right?
Well, So the point is when minority or when white people commit a crime or do something, the way they portray them in the media, they're going to show them to be like, they were justice, or they were mentally ill, or something was wrong, or it was so sad, or something was bad. And black people who literally, it doesn't matter, they're going to find something. The Trayvon Martins, that they're going to continue to look for something. They try to, Breonna Taylor's ex, they try to get her, you know what I mean? Like, they're always going to do something.
Because they have to keep the narrative going.
So
that helps them to not recognize racism.
And it also, not only does it help them to not recognize it, it also helps to portray what other people, the white people who just aren't around black people. Mm-hmm. If you're watching the news, if you're in these areas, and this all you get what's on TV, forget the news, because we're talking about the news, but think about even the shows that black people are on. And I'm going to go way back to the Flavor of Love days, right? Like the things that we put on the TV, because that is what they want to represent.
You can go down to the commercials.
I mean,
you can go... There's so much. We are programmed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to have a certain mentality
of black people.
Of not just black people, what America is. Not
right.
That one thing is black people, but another thing is America.
Right.
That is showing white people having fun and living life and being healthy is a normal part of American thought process.
Right.
Whereas when you think about black people, I was listening to a program talking about all the fires and stuff in Oregon, and they said something, poor communities. And I instantly thought black. They didn't say black.
Right.
Me, a black man. Soon as they said poor community, I associated it with being black and my people.
Right.
So that's how even when you're conscious and awake, the programming is so deep.
No, I mean it's in our schools. Goes back to education. I mean they oh my God, it's funny that you say that. So my daughter tried to have me do her homework assignment the other day. Had me reading her chapters in child development. She goes to North Carolina A&T, and I was impressed with the what she was reading. It was about racial biases in childcare and teachers, and it broke it down so good that I was like, hold on, but now mind you, she goes to a HBCU, because who needs that education is not the HBCU student though. That's the problem, right? So it's in her book, which I was again thoroughly impressed, but I'm like, but is it in my grandson's book that goes to Montgomery County school system? Because that's the books it needs to be in. They talked about statistics, and literally they gave an example of a kid who they had an Indian little kid do some kind of performance right at school, and she danced, and all the kids were teasing her, right? And then it went through all these things, and then a week later, she ended up fighting the kid. She ended up getting in trouble. The white kids who teased didn't get anything, and nobody made the connection in the schools of how all those things, instead of making her a co-learner, they made her showing her culture, but then so it gave the kids the opportunity to tease her, and then they're not realizing what they did, and all the teachers, and it showed all the layers of what can happen in our schools when things like that, just the way that we teach or receive information of a child who has a problem, or minority kids who often are disciplined differently than other kids.
Huge.
You know what I mean?
Huge.
And teachers, and none of them are even realizing that they're doing that, or even the praise that they get. They talked about the praise, like in classes where they're both, teachers are just inclined to praise. If you're a white teacher in a class that is diverse, you're still going to praise the white kids more.
So, can I add to that? I was actually watching a show with Umar Johnson, Dr. Umar Johnson, and he was talking about this because he's, in the school system, child psychologist and all that stuff. But he was talking about a child is more likely to succeed when the educator believes he's teachable. The child is teachable. So again, back to the narrative of, the classic American teacher is the middle-aged white woman. So this is the educator of American children. So think about what a white woman, middle-aged white woman, is thinking about a young black man.
And I see Jane Elliott. Y'all know my girl Jane Elliott from back in the day, the white lady. Y'all don't know Jane Elliott? Oh, y'all need to.
I mean, I heard of her.
Oh my God, she should be writing the curriculum. What should be going on in the schools? We'll have to pull her up. And I think education is one of our topics that we definitely have to get into.
We'll definitely get back to that.
So, do you think parents have a responsibility into putting that same kind of mindset into children's heads?
So, it's funny because they brought up the parenting as well. The parent thing is hard. I think parents are accountable. You're legally accountable for your children up to a certain age. I think you're accountable for educating them, teaching them about life in general. But unfortunately, especially in our communities, a lot of the parents have not had proper education themselves, not just the formal education through the school systems, but education about life and just education about yourself and education
morals,
about business,
life, finances.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of them are not educated. What I do appreciate is that nowadays I'm seeing more and more parents who are at this next generation. You have parents that are much more educated. You know, you have parents who are much more educated, and they are taking time to be more active and involved in their children's education. But I definitely think that parents are accountable. But now, what I say to that is, you know, let's get some curriculum and books out there to ensure that these parents have the tools that they need to educate these children. Let's not leave it to chance. Let's not just think they're going to know.
Right. I mean, and so you said a few key things. First of all, parents always accountable. I mean, you had the child. Like, the thing is, if you're having children, you should be accountable. But that's a whole nother topic. Because
should underline,
right. I mean, I'm just saying,
underline.
like
italicized.
I will always.
Because if I'm hungry, I don't have time to be worrying about if Betsy took her spelling bee. If she studied for her words, because I ain't had no food to eat, and I don't know how I'm gonna feed these 5 kids that I done had. Where I did have a job, but I lost it. Then I lost my home, and now I'm trying to do all these things and make sure these kids. Not saying that it's not impossible.
Right.
I mean, not saying that it can't happen.
Right.
But usually, what I see in mentoring kids forever is there's so many social things going on in their life that they can't even clear their head. There might be some.
And that's why, again, that goes back into systems overall. Because to me, our school systems are a failure, just like the political systems, right? Like, so this just goes into systems. Because honestly, we should be having psychology. And like we don't always need school nurses, but we always need therapists in the school. Like, that should be going on in the education system.
Which should be separate from the teacher, just like
come on, yeah, for sure. I didn't say no. That's a whole different person. Like, let's get some little individual sessions, some group sessions at an early age, so that you can start recognizing and understanding these kids, and then let me pull this kid in a little bit longer, or you know what, I still need to reach out to these parents because they need additional help too. But that's just a whole system thing. But I'm just saying, overall, parents, yes, should be accountable if you're going to have kids.
Okay.
And as far as education, I mean, yeah, I'm not saying every child should be a teacher, because I'm gonna tell you now, this couldn't be me. This pandemic at home stuff. No. But so I'm not saying in that way, but they have to be accountable, and it's not just about educating them. I mean, because the question, what I took it as, I was relating it to being accountable, not like in school, but being accountable for teaching our children positive images, or making sure, like, I think it also is important, even as a minority, which I think we tend to do, is to make sure that we do have an understanding of white people. Like, we tend to blend our kids more or make them more aware, whereas they don't. So I think, but all races need to make sure that we are giving our children well-balanced education, social interactions of different people, so that people aren't sitting up there thinking that everything they see on the TV is what we look like or represent.
True. So I want to change the topic a little bit and just talk about Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. What do you guys think about the first in a while, female black VP could happen, and good old Joe Biden, Obama's right-hand man for a long time.
So
can he do it? Do you think he can do it?
I hope he can do it. Listen, I don't know, because I think we got Trump because this country is full of racists. I think that is how we end up in the predicament that we're currently in. I think that as we watch the news and every time I think that we good, Trump supporters let me know, girl, you better go ahead and be worried, because I slept on the last election. Like, I was up there watching the polling numbers, thinking I was just going to wake up and Hillary was going to be president, but we saw this guy got in, right? So as far as them, I mean, they are who we have, right? I think what people have to remember is it's a party, unfortunately, right? Like, this is the way the country operates. It's a Democrat. These are the people that we've selected somehow. And the thing is, you're not voting for Biden. You're not voting just for Kamala. You know what I'm saying? You are voting for justices. You are it's just so much more to it. And so that is what we have to remember.
It's a bigger picture.
It's always the bigger picture.
It's not just that.
But as far as these two candidates, let me just say, at the beginning, I personally said, and this sounds horrible, when it was, I don't even remember, that was a big, I felt like I had to take notes on that first debate. I was like, I'm not even going to be able to keep up with all these people.
23.
Oh my God. I was like, hold on, I'm going to need a chart. I need a bingo chart to keep track of what they said. No, seriously, but I thought then that we needed a all-white man. It's just the way this country is set up. I like Kamala. I like Corey. There's a lot of people I like. The Buttigieg. I like all of them. But the thing is, this country was not ready for another brown person, minority person. This country, they like all white men. To me, that's the only person who's going to go in and what they say, talk on both sides of the table, right? Because they're not going to listen. They were never going to let Corey shouldn't even been up there wasting his damn money, and I liked him. I'm not touching young, but just they wasn't gonna let another black man in office. Come on now, I think I didn't see done in my lifetime. As far as them as a team, I think it's possible. I think they'll. As far as this country goes, I mean, like, what is really going to change? That's really the question. That's what it really boils down to. So after we get them in,
but we play the game.
But we have to play the game.
And
so I'm saying,
still we make a move.
So I'm saying with that, I hope we get them in. I've done my part. I've made my calls. I've donated my money. I'm continuously to do those things. But I also know that there's probably not going to be much change in 4 years unless we do something different, and it's not relying on this political system, this justice system, this school system. Like any of these systems, this isn't the way we're going to do it. So we still going to have to find another means to get what we really want.
Yeah, as far as Biden, I try to look up material just telling me what he's about, what he stands for, what's his platform. And I can't find anything. I can't find anything solid. I hear the usual rhetoric, but I don't know what this guy stands for. I don't know what he did during.
You know what Trump stands for?
Yeah, it's always this system is not built for us. It's always going to be.
That's what I'm saying. Like to me,
it's always going to be the lesser of two evils.
Right, it's still lose. I mean,
it's not lose. No, that's lose. Like that's lose. Trump. That's a whole nother losing. Come on now. Come on now.
That's murder. Like you that's suicide.
That's a whole.
Is it?
Yes.
Is it much worse?
You know why? He is the what do they call himself? The law and order president.
So let's look
our system.
Let's look at Ronald Reagan and what he did to our systems.
We can look at Clinton. They all done shit. They all done shit. I understand that.
So again,
but listen to look at where we're at right now.
You can't control. So this is what I think. I think that they already select the president even before all this voting stuff. I think I know. It's the conspiracy theory.
Yeah, that's going to be for me.
But again, it would make perfect sense.
But I think the NBA is the same thing. You got championships. But go ahead.
I think all of that stuff is fixed.
So I'm just saying that you want to.
I'm just saying in the sense of, again, how in anybody's earth could Trump win? Wait, how in anybody's earth, with everything that he's done, everything he's proven, that he could still be neck and neck with Biden. So to me, it's propaganda. They push these ideas to keep us distracted. Oh, who's gonna win?
I agree.
Wait, you're not by a landslide. Hold on. Out of all the 23 people, you're the best person, and you're not beating him by a landslide. To me, my logic kicks in and says this is a game.
Well, my logic kicks in and says I don't even know how this political system let this man be in office.
Exactly.
Like that's the first step because I don't understand. First of all, how did he apply for the job and he didn't submit all the documents?
Exactly.
Because I know I don't work for the government, but I know if I went to USA.gov, I know it's a whole bunch of damn paperwork I need to submit.
So you're proving my point even more so that he's already selected. He don't have. That's a formality. The taxes. That's a formality. Think about it. You're proving my point that it's already picked.
I don't know if it's already picked because I'm not convinced that he's gonna be the one. So it better not be already picked. I know that it better not already be picked. All I'm saying is our system still has to change because we cannot allow a political system that would allow this man to be in office and commit the crimes that he does blatantly in our face. This nigga is raping us. He's fucking us in the ass every damn day. No condom, dry. Like every day. Every day. I'm just saying.
Tell us how you really feel.
I'm just saying. Because this system, all I'm saying is, listen, this system here, if we have a president, if you apply for any, I don't care what job it is, right? There's a standard. Now, this presidency, you take
There's a standard for regular people, but white privilege. You don't go by standard. How many CEOs are just like, oh, you're the son of such and such? You got a job. So again, we talking about two different systems. You talking about the logical system that we think is going on, and then you talking about another system that we have no clue how it works.
Okay, we don't have a clue how it works, and we also then as I'm saying, we're here, we're playing the game. But if we're not going to play the game, then we can't be here. Because while we're here, we have to do what we can do, and that means play the game or take our shit and go somewhere and do something.
Now, I want y'all to comment. I want y'all to tell us, should we play the game or should we be looking for another game to play?
And so that's leading us into our next topic, which will probably be talking more about the exit strategy.
Going back to Africa.
Yeah, for real.
Going.
I'm going
back,
first. Did you see? Check out the link I sent.
Word. So that's our show for today. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. This is our first show or second show, but this is the show that's for show. Alright, I'm the Gem Star.
And I'm Ayana.
And we'll see you next time. Peace.